Potatoes are extremely affordable, they are great fillers for meals, and most importantly, they are delicious. So today I'll be sharing 6 of my all-time favorite ways to use potatoes. These recipes are absolutely out of this world. Let's get to my kitchen and let's get to potatoing. This one is one of my favorites. So to start us off today, we are making this Parmesan crusted chicken. I have a large sheet pan right here. Line it with parchment paper, just for easy cleanup. Now you're going to want to add about 1.5 pounds of baby yellow potatoes to the sheet pan, and make sure you do cut those potatoes into smaller bite-sized pieces. If you don't want to use yellow potatoes, you could always use like red potatoes as a substitute. I also added 1 pound of fresh broccoli that I cut into smaller pieces and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now add your seasonings on. It's just 1/2 tablespoon of salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. It's quite a bit of seasonings, but this is going to add a lot of flavor to these boring vegetables. Give this a stir to coat the veggies in the oil and the seasonings. After you made room in the center of your sheet pan for your 2 large chicken breasts, just add them right there and then spray them with a little bit of oil spray. This will help the coating become nice and crispy in the end. Then I sprinkled Parmesan cheese over the chicken breast, and then I sprinkled them with panko breadcrumbs. I kind of patted the panko and Parmesan on just to make sure it stuck. Now season the top of the chicken with a little bit of salt, pepper, paprika, Italian seasoning, onion powder, and garlic powder. Now you're going to want to flip the chicken over and repeat this process on the other side of the chicken. So spray it with the spray, add the Parmesan, panko, and then your seasonings. After you're through adding all of your seasonings on, bake this in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 35 minutes or until your chicken is completely cooked through. Once the time is up, your house will be smelling like the most delicious, coziest dinner in the world. Those veggies are like perfectly tender, and that coating on the outside of the chicken is like perfectly crispy. It has so much flavor, and that chicken is like so juicy and so good. Now we are making this sausage and potato casserole, so over to this pan on my stove, I'm going to add 1 package of Italian sausage links right in there. I'm using this sweet Italian sausage because that's my favorite, but you could use any type you like. Just cook that sausage through, and while it's cooking away, I am going to slice about 7 medium-sized golden potatoes, super thin. But now that my sausage is cooked through, I placed it on a cutting board, and I'm going to slice the sausage into super small discs, just like this. Now that I am through slicing up our sausage, I'm going to set it to the side. Over to this large bowl, I'm adding in 8 ounces of cream cheese that I cubed. I did soften this cream cheese in the microwave for 30 seconds. You want to make sure it's soft. Now add in a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of onion powder, paprika, and garlic powder. Whisk this well to combine the cream cheese in with the seasonings. Now you're going to want to slowly add in 1 cup of milk. Make sure you add it in super slow and whisk it while you add it in, just like this. Otherwise, the cream cheese will be clumpy. After you're through adding in the milk, add in 1/2 cup of chicken broth and whisk that well. Now I'm going to make a cornstarch slurry. This will help thicken up the sauce while it bakes. It's just 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of water mixed together. Add it into your sauce and then whisk it. I will bring the sauce over to a 9x13 baking dish and add half of the sauce in there, then cover the sauce with the potatoes that we cut up earlier. Just spread them out. Then place the sliced sausage over the top of the potatoes, and then over the sausage I am going to add 1 yellow onion that I sliced, and then over the onion I am just going to add the remaining sauce that we have in the bowl. On top of everything, I am just adding 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. Of course, if you don't care for cheese, you don't have to add it. Cover this with foil and bake this in a preheated oven to 350 degrees for 45 minutes, then uncover it and bake it for an additional 15 minutes. Here's my plate of food. Those potatoes are perfectly tender and that sausage has so much flavor. Also, this sauce is like rich and creamy and dreamy. It really is wonderful. I did serve this with a side salad with spring mix, tomatoes, and then a little bit of ranch dressing and onions. I know this is a bold statement, but this sheet pan chicken with bacon, potatoes, and Brussels sprouts has to be one of my all-time favorite sheet pan meals. I started out by cutting 1.5 pounds of baby golden potatoes into small bite-sized pieces, and then I trimmed and halved about 1 pound of Brussels sprouts. I'll set these vegetables to the side. We're going to work on the balsamic sauce right now. To this little bowl, I'm adding in 1/3 cup of balsamic vinegar, followed by a tablespoon of olive oil. Next, add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. Now we're going to add in the juice from 1/2 of a lemon, and I know a lot of us don't have fresh lemons on hand often, but it's worth getting one for this recipe. Now add in a tablespoon of minced garlic and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Give this a whisk. Now I'm going to add in about 2 pounds of chicken. I did cut this chicken into larger pieces. I'll give this a stir and let this marinate while we start working on our bacon. I am going to slice about 6 strips of bacon into smaller pieces. I set my bacon to the side and I pulled out my sheet pan. I have my sheet pan right here lined with parchment paper, and onto the sheet pan we are going to be adding the potatoes and the Brussels sprouts that we cut up earlier. And all over the sheet pan you are going to scatter the bacon. You don't really want the bacon touching each other like too much because you want that bacon to get nice and crispy, and you want the potatoes and Brussels sprouts to get flavorful from the bacon. Now I'm adding our chicken pieces around the sheet pan, and I'm going to drizzle the sauce over the top. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 375 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes, or until the chicken gets cooked through and the bacon gets crispy. Like I said before, this has to be one of my all-time favorite sheet pan meals, and you know what? I'm not even the biggest Brussels sprout fan in the world, but cooking them this way makes them amazingly delicious. I could eat every single Brussels sprout on this pan, and I serve this alongside of a side salad. This meal's amazing. Now we are making this juicy pan-seared chicken, and I did make mashed potatoes on the side, and I do want to share the recipe with you. So to start out, peel and cube your golden potatoes into smaller pieces. Now over to a large pot of boiling water, just add the potatoes right in there and boil them until they are fork tender. Of course, they'll cook quicker if you make the potatoes smaller. But now we're going to get started on the chicken. I have my 2 chicken breasts right here. Slice the chicken in half horizontally. This is going to make the chicken thinner, just so it cooks quicker and then it is more tender. Now I'm getting started on the seasoning mixture for the chicken. It's 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, then 1 teaspoon of paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. Give it a really good stir. Now you're going to rub the seasoning mixture onto the chicken. Make sure you rub it on the front and the back of the chicken. Now that the chicken is seasoned well, over to this pan on my stove, I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once the oil is hot, add in the chicken. Cook the chicken on medium heat for about 4 minutes on each side until the chicken is like golden brown on the outside and like almost like crispy, but then the inside of the chicken will be super juicy and delicious. I only like to flip my chicken once while it is cooking. That way it forms a wonderful crust on the outside. But once the chicken's cooked through, just remove it to a plate and set it to the side. Over to my potatoes. Now that my potatoes are fork tender, just go ahead and strain them. Set the potatoes to the side. To the same pot the potatoes were cooked in, add in between 4 to 6 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of minced garlic, then salt, pepper, dried rosemary, and dried thyme. Those seasonings are just going to give it so much added flavor. Let the butter, garlic, and seasonings cook for about a minute in the pot. This is going to enhance the the flavor just by cooking the butter and seasonings together. This recipe is on page 42 in my cookbook. I make these mashed potatoes for like every holiday and everybody loves them. They are so flavorful and so good. This recipe is in the sides and appetizers section of my book, and I do have some cookbooks available right now if you don't have one yet. But now add the cooked potatoes back into the pot, then add in 1 cup of milk. Mash the potatoes up until they are creamy and smooth. If you are tired of boring chicken that is dry and not flavorful, you absolutely need to try this pan-seared chicken. It is juicy and oh so flavorful. Those mashed potatoes are like herby and phenomenal. I serve this with a side salad with iceberg lettuce and spinach for the base of the salad. Now we're making this sausage and potato dinner. This one is so good. So you're going to start out by dicing your red potatoes into smaller pieces along with your zucchini and 2 bell peppers. You do want to make sure you dice your red potatoes into very small pieces just so they cook evenly and quick. But over to the pan on my stove, I added in 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I added the potatoes right in there. Next, I'm going to slice my kielbasa sausage kind of into half moons. This is 12 ounces of sausage if you're wondering. Cook this together for about 3 to 4 minutes. After you're through cooking this together for that time, you're going to add in about a half a cup of water, then your seasonings. So a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, and 2 teaspoons of Cajun seasoning. Cook this together for about 5 more minutes. Now you're going to toss in about a tablespoon of minced garlic, then add in the zucchini and peppers from earlier. Give this a really good stir, and you're going to want to cook this covered with a lid for about 5 to 10 minutes. Do stir often while it's cooking for that time, but after that time is up, just stir in 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese if you'd like to. If you don't want to add in the Parmesan cheese, of course you certainly don't need to, but after the cheese is nice and melty, you could serve this up. If you've been looking for a dinner that you can meal prep really easily, or a lunch you can meal prep easily, this one is definitely for you. You can make this in the beginning of the week, put it in little containers for the rest of the week, and then this one microwaves really well. It just tastes the same. It's super good. My husband loves this one. We are making this 1-pot cheesy beef and potatoes now. I'm starting out by peeling and dicing my 4 russet potatoes, a yellow onion, and a yellow bell pepper. Over to the pan on my stove, I have about a tablespoon of olive oil in there. My oil is hot at this point. I added the potatoes and onion in there. I'm just going to cook the potatoes and onion for about 4 minutes on the stove. After that cooking time is up, I just added the bell pepper in along with a tablespoon of minced garlic, my 1 pound of ground beef, or you could use ground turkey, ground chicken, or any meat substitute that you like. And then for the seasonings, I tossed in a teaspoon of pepper, salt, Italian seasoning, and 2 teaspoons of paprika. I'm going to break the ground beef up right now, and I'm going to let it cook for about 5 minutes on my stove, so the ground beef won't be completely cooked through at this point. I added in 3/4 cup of chicken broth, and I'm going to let this cook covered for about 5 to 10 minutes, or until the ground beef is cooked through and the potatoes are tender. At that point, I added in 1 cup of Colby Jack cheese. I gave it a stir, and then I served this dinner up. Here's my plate of food. This dinner is so hearty and delicious. It has very minimal ingredients, and if you want to add ingredients to this, you certainly can, and you could also subtract ingredients to really make it your own and customize it for you and your family. I would really love to have you over here, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next video like this. I'll see you there. Bye for now.